the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yashil Ahmed and I belong to the Department BS Biochemistry and my roll number is 4. Basically, the topic of my today presentation is plasmonic nanoparticles. First, we have to know about what is basically the plasmonics. Basically, it involves the science and the technology of manipulation of the light with the objects that are very significantly smaller than the wavelength of light. We came to know about this, the plasmonic, which is the part of the nanophotonics and the nano-optics, basically concerns with the investigation of the electrons oscillations in the metallic nanostructures and the nanoparticles. Basically, the surface plasmons that have optical properties, they are very interesting. Plasmonic hotspots hold all the necessary ingredients to photocatalyze the chemical reactions, leaving us on the step closer to the sunlight into the chemical reactions conversion. Moving towards the next slide, that is basically what is plasmonic nanoparticle. We know that the plasmonic nanoparticles such as gold or silver nanoparticles that trigger the chemical processes in the environment upon the excitation of their localized surface plasmon resonance. These processes can either be described to the generation and the transfer of the hard charge carriers or to increase the temperature. They are basically those particles whose electron density can couple with the electromagnetic radiations of the wavelengths that are far larger than the particles due to the nature of the dielectric metal interface and between the medium and the particles, unlike in the pure metal where there is a maximum limit on what size it is having. It refers to the generation and the detention, manipulation, and the signals of the optical frequencies along the metal dielectric interfaces in the nanometer scale. Moving towards the next slide, that is the use of the nanoparticles. Basically, plasmonic nanoparticles are used because they are extremely strong absorbers and the scatters of light, and they are used in the lateral flow diagnostic, surface enhanced spectroscopy, labeling, color changing senses. Nanoparticles are now being used in the manufacture of the scratch-proof eyeglasses, crack-resistant paints, anti-grafting coatings for the walls, and the transparent screenings, and the stain repellents and the fabrics, self-cleaning windows, and ceramic coating for the solar cells. Moving towards the next slides, there are the plasmonic particle example. Talking about the plasmonic nanoparticles, we have to know about those materials, those substances that are basically the nanoparticles. So gold, silver, copper, and zinc, and gold or silver nanotubes and their subshells are basically comes in the category of the plasmonic examples. Moving towards the next slide, that is the plasmonics and the metallic reactors and their interaction with light. Basically, nanoparticles that have fascinated scientists over a great century because of their huge potential in the nanotechnology. Periodic metal nanostructures show long diffractive interactions when the lattice space is close to the wavelength of the incident light. The collective coupling between the metal and the nanoparticles in a lattice introduces a sharp and intense plasmonic surface lattice resonances, in contrast to the broad localized resonances from the single nanoparticle. Plasmonic nanoparticles lattices exhibit strongly enhanced optical fields within the subwavelength vicinity of the nanoparticles. Unit cells that are 2 orders of magnitude higher than other of the individual unit. These intense electromagnetic fields can manipulate nanoscale processes such as photocatalysis, optical spectroscopy, non-linear optics, and the light harvesting. Plasmonic nanostructures are categorized by the plasmon oscillations of the conduction band electrons in response to the 4 things that are external radiation, strong light absorption, scattering capacities, and the near field amplification. There is a question arising, how do the plasmonic characters interact with the light? Here I have given you the answers of this specific question. That is, these nanoparticles, especially gold absorbers, scatter light with extraordinary efficiency. Their strong interactions with the light because of the conduction of the electrons in the metal surface undergo collective oscillations when they are excited by the light of the specific wavelength. The properties of the plasmons is greatly related to the metals and the semiconductors, which are visible which are very have like plasmon is greatly related to the metals and the semiconductors with the various morphologies that have very changing wavelengths, such as in ultraviolet rays, visible rays, and infrared rays. Another question is arising that do they reflect or absorb light? Here is the answer. They reflect and absorb light according to their specific wavelength of light. All the reactions of the lights are done according to their wavelength, their intensities, and their frequencies. And the answer is this: they reflect and absorb specific wavelengths of the light at wavelengths corresponding to the resonant excitation of the surface plasmons. Up to 99% of the impinging light is efficiently trapped and absorbed in the periodic trenches. When the surface plasmons have interacted with the local particles, part of the energy can be emitted as light. This emitted light can be detected behind the metal file from the various directions. Here is the another heading of our topic, that is the chemical reduction method of the nanoparticles. Talking about the chemical reduction methods, that is often conducted at the room temperature or with a moderate heating and can be accomplished through the chemical reagents reduction, photocatalyst reaction, the electrochemical reduction, and the solvothermal reduction products. Chemical reaction methods are very cost effective, and they're widely mean for the mass production of the RTO compared with the thermal conduction. In chemical methods, a reduction agent in the form of a gas or liquid is added to the GO for the elimination of the functional groups. And they have given us some of the reduction agents like phenylhydrazine, ascorbic acid, hydroxylamine, and hydroquinone, glucose, sodium borohydrate, alkaline solutions, and the pyrols. Here we came to know about this. The chemical reduction consists of the three strategies: the reduction of the metallic salt by reducing agent, stabilization of the ion complexes, controlling of the size by the capping agent. It is mainly conducted by the room temperature and can be accomplished through the chemical reduction of photocatalytic reductions. Basically, it allows all the size and morphology and the crystallinity of the particles. Moving towards next, here we came about to know about the seed mediated growth. First, we have to know about the process of the seed mediation. It offers an effective means of circumscribe homogeneous nucleation by depositing the atom directly on the preformed seed having well-defined features. For example, if we talk about gold mediation, here a question arises: what is the seeded growth method of the gold nanoparticle? There I am giving you the answer. Listen carefully. These gold nanoparticles takes the seeds for the subsequent growth reaction in which the same precursors are slowly added to the reaction vessel. During the reaction, the gold nanoparticles start to agglomerate when they reach a certain size. These seed-mediated growth lifetimes measured within the SGH are the faster for the smaller final gold particle sizing, varying from 0.45 to 1.7 minutes for the final nanoparticle sizes of the 66 and 94 nanometer respectively. Gold particles act like seeds for the subsequent growth reaction in which the same precursors are slowly added to the reaction vessels. Basically, this is the very powerful and versatile approach of the synthesis of the colloidal metal nanoparticles. Vast layer of this approach mainly stems towards the staggering degree of the control one can achieve over size, shape, and composition of the nanoparticles. Moving towards our next slide, we came to know about the characterization techniques of the nanoparticles. Basically, appropriate analytical techniques for the characterization of the solid particles such as the photon coloration and spectroscopy, scanning electron spectroscopy, differential scanning colorimetry are highlighted. Aspects of the solid lipid nanoparticles route to the administration and their biodistribution are also incorporated. Basically, microscopic methods generate images of the individual nanoparticles to categorize their shape, size, and location. And the electron microscopy and the scanning probe microscopy is mainly the two methods that are involved in the categorization techniques of nanoparticles. Plasmonic materials are metal and metal-like materials that exhibit the negative real permittivity, and the nanoparticles that are having the size less than the diffraction limit of the visible light. Conventional optical microscopy is not useful. Moving towards our next slide, that is basically the optical properties of nanoparticles. Here, basically, there are the two properties that are always included in the optical properties of nanoparticles. There are two, that is refractive index and the dispersion. Basically, they optical sensors consist of the non-scale or the nanostructure sensor material, which are very show a distinct reaction on the electromagnetic excitation at the optical frequencies. Basically, there are many applications used for the optical properties of nanoparticles. They are basically known as the luminescence-based detection, surface plasmon resonance, which are known as the SPR detection, as search for detection, chemical and biochemical imaging, biomedical therapy. They include the enormous absorption, scattering, and the field enhancement enable a wide range of the applications associated with the updated signal or enhanced chemical signal for the imaging and senses. Their light emission is dynamic and they can be differ significantly from their properties exhibited by the same bulk materials. And three techniques are as follow. I have told you that are known as the transmission electron microscopy, that uses the beam of electron to image the nanoparticle sample, providing such high resolution that is possible with the light-based imaging techniques. Number second is TEM, that is preferred method is directly measure nanoparticle size, grain size, and distribution size and morphology. Nanoparticles are sensitive to the size and their shape, its concentration, and refractive index near the nanoparticle surface, which makes ultraviolet visual a valuable tool for identifying, characterizing, and studying nanoparticles. And it ranges the maximum absorption from the 400 nanometers to the 500 nanometers because of the surface plasmon resonance. Moving towards our next slide, that is Plasmonics and XRD, which is known as the X-ray diffraction. Here, it is a very versatile technique used in the method of nanoparticles to characterize, and accumulate the information regarding the composition and the crystalline grain size of the nanoparticles. Scattering of the X-rays because of the revolution of the electrons in the atom nucleus when the rays strikes on the nanoparticles. The scattered X-rays are reflected in various directions, which cause the interference patterns. And moving towards the next slides, here is basically the catalytic property of nanoparticles. Basically, nanoparticles are important catalysts for the petroleum processing, energy conversion, and pollutant removal. As compared to their bulk counterparts, they often superior or new catalytic properties result from their own nanoparticle size, which gives them increased surface to volume ratios and the chemical potentials. Basically, specific reactions that are involved in the catalytic nanoparticles, they are known as the specific reactions like epoxidation, selective oxidation, hydrogenation, oxygen reduction, reductive coupling reactions. These reactions are used in a wide range of the organic molecules in several different applications and the commercial settings. Moving towards our next slide, basically, according to the previous slide, the definition of the catalyst is this. It is the chief component of the nanocatalysis. They are the inorganic material like semiconductors and the metal oxides. Distinct types of the nanocatalysts like photocatalyst, electrocatalyst, and the phantom-based catalyst that have been used for the treatment of the wastewater. Moving towards our next slide, basically, this is the benefits of the nanoparticles. If we talk about the benefits of the nanoparticles, we came to know about all the stability. Basically, the nanoparticles offer stability at a very low cost, and by considering the environmental concerns, and they also minimize risk of both environmental and in the human health, in particular by helping create the shift to the cleaner and the safe processes with all those materials that are causing less negative impacts, as they are used for the removal of heavy metal, treatment of industrial influence, and the fabrication of materials, and the unique properties biomedical sensors. If we talk about the techniques which instrument is used in the categorization of the nanoparticles, that are scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy, and together with the electron diffraction have been commonly used in the characterization of the nanoparticles to get an idea of the size, shape, and the defects present in these materials. Catalytic reactions and nanoparticles. Again, there are basically plasmonic catalysis uses plasmons to increase the rate of the chemicals reactions. The plasmonic catalyst made up of the metal nanoparticle surface, usually of the gold and the silver, which greatly localize surface plasma resonance and when they are excited by the light. Nanoparticles catalysts are the active for the hydrogenolysis of the carbon-fluorine bonds, such as polychlorated biphenyls and other reactions in the hydrogenation of the halogenated aromatic amines, in also important for the synthesis of the herbicides and pesticides. Basically, plasmonics and sensing. Plasmonic and sensing may include that plasmonic senses have an oscillation nature and under the specific resonant conditions tends to propagate the metal surfaces. This will allow for the detection of the small changes in the refractive index. They are very commonly used on the recognition reagents in the flow of the cytometry in the conjugation with the antibody critical angle of reflection, and in nanoparticle descending material should have sharp and precise scale optical response with the incident light phase plasmon resonance. According to this picture, we came to know about the plasmonic structure that are behaving as a sensors. Moving towards the next slide, this is the biodistribution of nanoparticles. Biodistribution basically plays a very important role in the evaluation of the nanoparticle diagnostic and the therapeutic efficacy of the biocompatibility and the toxicity. Commonly used tools for the measuring of the biodistribution includes radio bells and radio labels near the infrared fluorescence and the inductively coupled plasma mass spectrograph. Biodistribution is basically very fundamental to identify to target organs and anticipating safely and efficiently may be integrated to studies of the specificities of vectors and constructs. Basically, in our next slide, there is a role of the environmental on pollution in the nanochemistry. Nanomaterials reaching in the land have the potential to contaminate soil and migrate into the surface and the groundwaters. Particles in the solid waste water influents. Direct discharge and accidental spillages can be exported to the aquatic system by wind or the rain off roof. Basically, biomolecular nanoparticles hybrid systems provide a new material that combines the unique optical, electronic, or the catalytic properties of the nano elements, which the recognition of the catalytic functions of the biomolecules. Basically, nanoparticles can enhance the degradation of the environmental pollutants due to their strong light absorption and the increasing efficient and the selective catalysis. Nanotechnology offers new improved technologies such as nanosensors, nanodevices, nanofilters, and industrial waste purification. Moving towards the next slide, basically this is a slide and they are the circles that are showing the role of the biomedical in the plasmonics. Plasmon resonance is the light matter interaction that allows the localization of the field radiation in the near field with an intense electromagnetic field, enhancing the nanometric ablation and the photoluminescence of the fluorophore nearby. Basically, there are five: the physics to engineering, chemistry and biomedical, and the biology and biomedical, food and sciences, and the environmental sciences that include in the biomedical. Moving towards the next slide. Basically, this is the role of the drug delivery in the field of the plasmonic nanoparticles. According to our searches, we came to know about this data that I am going to tell you. Nanocarriers like polymeric nanoparticles, mesoferrous nanoparticles, nanocarbons, and the nanotubes, and dendrimers, and the engineered nanoparticles are used as a carriage system for the targeted delivery at the specific sites of the effective area of the body. Basically, if the nanoparticle is coated by the polymer, the release is then controlled by the diffusion of the drug from the very polymeric membrane. Membrane coating acts as a drug release barrier, drug solubility and the diffusion across the polymer plane membrane becoming a determining factor in the drug release. And moving towards the next, there is a technique which is known as the plasmonic photothermal therapy. Heat generation generated from the plasmonic nanoparticles can be utilized for the plasmonic thermal therapy. A combination of the near-infrared laser and the plasmonic nanoparticle is compelling for the treatment of the brain cancer due to the efficient light to the heat conversion and the biocompatibility. In this method, the plasmonic nanoparticles are uptaken by the tumor and then specifically heated by the exposure of the laser radiation on the specific plasmonic resonant wavelength to destroy the tumor, whilst minimizing damage to the adjacent normal tissues. Here is the bioimaging in the plasmonics. A procedure in which there is no involvement of the tools that can invade the skin or the physically enter into the body and introduce scientists to the new biological functions in the real time. Nanoparticle fluorescence imaging has been used in the gene detection and the protein catalysis, enzyme activity evaluation, element tracing, tumor-related research, and the monitoring real-time therapeutic events. Plasmonics and energy. This is basically a very, very important topic in the field of the plasmonics, in which we came to know about basically we have plasmonic energy is the answer of every question that person can ask. Plasmon is the collective oscillations of the electrons that are present on the bulk and the surface of conducting metal and the neighborhood of the conductive particle. The fundamental aspects of the plasmonic character like gold, silver and the aluminium of the different sizes and the shapes have been extensively investigated to understand the role in the energy catalysis and the photocatalyst and the solar cells. Basically, electric field created by the plasmons on the surface of the selective excitation of the photons and significantly increases the performance of the catalytic and the photoinductive processes. And the solar energy and the solar conversion and properties. Solar energy is basically the almost very abundantly available, clean, pollution-free and economical very available energy source on the earth, and the sun is the illuminated source of the solar energy. The sun will supply an unlimited amount of energy to the earth for an unlimited time due to the abundance of the hydrogen in the core. This abundance of hydrogen inside the sun's core fuses together to produce the energy known as solar energy. The sun is continuously supplying solar energy without an expectation. Therefore, everyone who is working in this field wants to know the field about this energy. Basically, we know that the plasmonic enhanced by the solar energy, commonly referred as simply as the plasmonic solar cell, including a thin film or the water-based cells. They are those cells of the solar cell that converts the light energy into the electrical energy or the electricity with the help of the plasmons, but where the photovoltaic effect occurs in another material. Plasmonic enhanced increases of the absorption of the scattering of the light using a metal nanoparticles excited at their localized surface in the plasmon resonance. Solar cells and plasmons. Basically, we came to know about this. On the other hand, the direct plasmonic solar cells exploit the fact that the upcoming light of the plasmon resonant frequency induces the electron oscillation of the surface of the nanoparticles. These oscillation electrons can be captured by the conductive layer, producing an electric current. The voltage produces in the independent on the band gap of the conductive layer and the potential on the electrolyte in contact with the nanoparticles. And the main topic of presentation is arising, that is plasmonics and hydrogen generation. First, coming to the point where we came to know about how the hydrogen energy is generated. Basically, hydrogen fuel can be produced through the various methods. The most common method today we are natural gas performing is basically a thermal process and electrolysis. Other methods include solar driven and the biological processes as water electrolysis and using the solar generated energy, that is electricity, and also directed solar water splitting. Moving towards the methods of the hydrogen generation. Again, there are circles, there are basically diagrams. that is showing the methods of hydrogen generation. Basically, there are the two methods are used to produce the hydrogen. There are two methods are known as the stream methane reforming and electrolysis. Coming to the point with the nanoparticles that are used for the hydrogen storage. Basically, this is a question. The audience want to know about which are those nanoparticles that are used for the hydrogen storage, that is carbon nanotubes, nanocomposites, complex carbons, boron nitride nanotubes, and the polymer nanocomposites. Moving more, there is basically developments in the plasmonics. Here we came to know about the enhancement in the field of plasmonics. This field enhancement effect has profound applications for many optical phenomena. Plasmonic resonant nanoparticles, when the light interacts with the particle having a dimension much smaller than the wavelength of the light, and the particle is polarized and induce change charge distribution appearing over the particle surface. Plasmonics is basically a very young topic for the research, which is the part of the nanophotonics and nano-optics. Plasmonic concerns an investigation of the electron oscillations in the metal nanostructure and particles. And basically sensors for the sensors for the detecting up a chemical and biological agents in the basics and the important study. And basically they first use basically the plasmonic, the term was first very used from the ancient Latin, as that it was the time of the plasmon biscuit, which were very famous at that time, was considered as healthy food. Moving towards the next slide, there's again the developments in the plasmonics, and we came to know about this basically talking about the materials. We came to know about the metals, and materials exhibit negative and the real permittive. Most common plasmonic materials are gold and silver, and however many other materials are showing plasmonic characters and are metals such as optical properties in the specific wavelengths and ranges. Coming towards the benefits, we talk about the plasmon. The plasmon allows up breaking of the diffraction limits in the localization of the light and the wavelengths and the dimensions, in enabling strong field enhancement. Basically, nanoparticles very important for the petroleum processes and energy conversion and pollutant removal as compared to their bulk of the counterparts. They are often superior or the new catalytic properties result from their nanoparticles, and which gives them increased surface to volume ratios and the increased properties. Basically, we came about the uses of plasmonics also. Basically, there are different types of plasmonics, and also the different basically plasmonics, gold and silver nanoparticles have a unique optical, electrical, and the thermal properties, and their hence are used in the applications such as antimicrobial coatings and the molecular diagnostic, and moreover. And they are the types of plasmonics, which are titanium dioxide, nanofluid, nanowire, nanogold particle, photocatalysts, surface plasmons, and nanomaterials. And the advantages of nanoparticles, we can talk about that nanoparticles have many potential advantage, including increased strength and durability, improved the electrical conductivity, and enhance the catalytic activity. They are also used in the targeted drug delivery, as well as in the development of the more efficient solar cells in the batteries. And they are also used to speed up any kind of reaction, like a plasmonical reaction. Here there are the links of the required data, and you can get